So in this video by Tim Keller, I definitely learned a lot. I think I learned most about the stuff that we've been talking about in sports sociology, as far as finding your identity in things like sex or money. Plays a big part in sports, especially professionally. Those are two things that really stood out to me about his message. He said a quote that he said something like, we always want to be the smartest. If we are the smartest, we want to be smarter. If we're the richest, we want to be richer. I think that really goes a long way, especially even talking about money. You look at NBA contracts or NFL, MLB especially, being the highest. You think, what's the difference between 23 million and 25 million a year? Well, it's really not that much of a difference, probably even financially. But when you look at somebody else that you think you're better than, you want to have more money than them just because you want to have more money than them. And it goes for the same way as being a player or a coach, whatever, just finding your identity and wanting to be the best. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when it starts to take over your life, that's where it becomes a problem. And those 2 points that he pointed out about finding your identity in money and sex, I think those are two things that are a very big deal in sports as far as athletes, because both of those things come with fame. And I think a lot of players, unfortunately, play for that, live for that, and it's just a part of who they are. And unfortunately, once they finish their career as players, that's what holds them together, is the fame, the money, because they're no longer an athlete. They're just a famous person with money and power. As far as personally, I think I definitely found myself struggling with identity. I know two specific occasions as a high school athlete. First was my senior year football. Definitely worked super hard. Our team did. It was honestly just super hard, working every day. Feel like we put in so much work and just deserved a state championship. We were the number one team in the state, and we played our first round in the playoffs and got upset, and the season was over in a blink. And so I remember thinking, it was almost like everything we had worked for was over, and what was all that even for? And it was almost just like I was at a breaking point of just didn't know what to do, didn't know how to spend every day, whatever. And I think that goes back to something that he said about it's more about community. And so looking back on it, I can know that those things I went through, all those hard practices and all the hard work we put in was with some of my best friends. They're still my best friends to this day, even some that I currently live with. Still to this day, talk to a lot of them, and so that was more what it was about. But in the moment, it was it was definitely not something I realized. And then another moment was I played football and I played basketball, and my senior year of basketball, when we lost our final game and my career was over, it was like a sense of, I don't have practice what I do, with my life, which is understandable completely, but it was almost like I was never going to play sports again, and I'd played for 18 years, all my life. That's all I'd known was playing sports, and it was over. And I think it really took me probably a good year and a half of being away from it, being in college, to find myself outside of that, because there was always another season to look forward to, another sport, and whatever, and it was over, and it felt like there was nothing. And then specifically during one moment, my senior year of basketball, I hit a game-winning shot, the district semifinals, and it was the greatest feeling in the world that night and stuff, and so much just praise and stuff. And 2 days later, we played again for the championship, and we won, and it was like no one remembered the shot anymore, which I occasionally still have people, but it was like the buzz was over, and it almost at the time felt like I was going to be getting that amount of praise, that everyone remembered that shot that I hit forever. And it was just kind of weird that it felt like no one did, and I was almost found my identity in that for a couple of days, and it was like I expected to for the rest of my life. It seemed like in that moment, and I heard some lately. Christian Leitner, he had a game-winning shot in the NCAA tournament, and he kind of talked about the same thing, that it feels like nobody remembers it, and that kind of struck with me. Obviously, not on a big stage or nationally, but just locally, friends and the people I knew. It was almost like everybody forgot, and I was finding my identity in it, but no one cared. And so that was definitely something where I realized like what was important and what wasn't.